During a $1 million negotiation, a cleaning lady approaches the businessman and in a barely audible tone whispers, "Don't sign this contract." The atmosphere freezes instantly, as if time itself paused for a brief moment. What she reveals next not only changes the course of the meeting, but brings to light a truth so devastating, it has the power to ruin lives forever. The fluorescent lights of the Mendoza Investments building flickered to life as Lauren Patterson wheeled her cleaning cart into the marble-floored lobby at 4:30 a.m. The night security guard, Marcus, offered his usual warm smile as she signed in, her work-worn hands gripping the pen with determined familiarity. "Morning, Lauren. How's Michael doing with that science project?" "Nearly finished," she replied, managing a tired smile. "He's presenting it tomorrow. Spent all weekend helping him perfect his solar system model." "That kid's going places," Marcus nodded, sliding her ID badge across the polished desk, just like his mama. Lauren's reflection caught her eye in the mirrored elevator doors, dark circles under her hazel eyes, honey brown hair pulled back in a practical bun, navy cleaning uniform that had seen better days. At 32, she felt twice her age, the weight of responsibility etched in the subtle lines around her mouth. The elevator ascended silently to the 45th floor, each floor representing another step away from her modest Queen's apartment, where 8-year-old Michael was still sleeping under the watchful eye of Mrs. Rodriguez, their elderly neighbor who helped with morning childcare in exchange for Lauren's weekend assistance with groceries and housework. As she pushed her cart down the hushed corridor of Manhattan's most prestigious investment firm, Lauren's mind wandered to her brother Ryan, lying in his sterile room at Metropolitan Hospital. The aggressive form of lymphoma was eating away at both his body and their meager savings, despite the hospital's financial assistance program. "Just one more treatment," she whispered to herself, organizing her cleaning supplies. "Just one more, and maybe." The executive floor gleamed with wealth, original paintings adorning walls, Italian leather furniture, and floor-to-ceiling windows offering a breathtaking view of the city awakening below. Lauren moved methodically through her routine, dusting the mahogany conference table where $1 million deals were struck daily. Her phone vibrated, a text from the hospital. "Mr. Patterson's morning vitals stable. Reminder, payment plan review meeting today at 2 p.m. Lauren's hands trembled slightly as she tucked the phone away. The morning light was starting to paint the sky in shades of pink and gold, casting long shadows across the pristine carpet. She had exactly 3 hours to finish this floor before heading to her second job at the local diner. "Ms. Patterson?" The voice startled her. Standing in the doorway was Sandra Mitchell, the head of HR, impeccably dressed in a Chanel suit despite the early hour. "I'm sorry, I'll be finished here in just a moment," Lauren apologized, quickly gathering her supplies. "No rush," Sandra smiled, though it didn't reach her eyes. "I just wanted to remind you about the confidentiality agreement you signed. We have an important board meeting here at 9. Lauren nodded, fighting back the urge to remind Sandra that she'd been cleaning these offices reliably for 3 years. "Of course, Ms. Mitchell, I understand." As Sandra's Louboutin heels clicked away down the corridor, Lauren's attention was drawn to a document left on the conference room table. Her eyes caught familiar phrases that sent a chill down her spine. Guaranteed returns, risk-free investment, unprecedented opportunity. The words transported her back 15 years to their family home in Connecticut, where her father, a high school teacher, had signed away their life savings to a similar, risk-free opportunity. The memory of him sitting at their kitchen table, head in his hands, the foreclosure notice crumpled before him, was forever etched in her mind. The sound of voices approaching snapped her back to reality. Through the glass walls, she could see Arthur Mendoza himself striding down the hallway, his tailored Tom Ford suit and Patek Philippe watch worth more than her annual salary. Behind him walked 2 men she didn't recognize, carrying leather briefcases and wearing expressions of barely contained excitement. Lauren's heart raced as she heard snippets of their conversation. Completely secure investment. Guaranteed returns of 300%. Just need your signature, Mr. Mendoza. Before she could stop herself, Lauren's voice cut through the air. "Don't sign that contract." The words hung in the silence that followed, as 3 pairs of eyes turned to stare at her. Arthur Mendoza's piercing blue gaze fixed on her face, his expression unreadable. "Excuse me?" One of the men stepped forward, his face reddening. "Who are you two?" "It's all right, James." Mendoza held up a hand, studying Lauren with unexpected intensity. "Please, continue, Ms. Patterson, sir." "Lauren Patterson." Her voice trembled slightly, but she forced herself to meet his gaze. "I apologize for speaking out of turn, but I've seen contracts like this before. The language, the promises, they're exactly like the one that destroyed my family 15 years ago." Mendoza's expression shifted subtly. He turned to his companions. "Gentlemen, I believe we need to reschedule this meeting. My assistant will be in touch." The men protested, but Mendoza was firm. After they left, he turned back to Lauren, who was gripping her cleaning cart so tightly her knuckles had turned white. "Ms. Patterson, would you join me in my office?" The walk to his corner office felt surreal. Lauren had cleaned it hundreds of times, but had never seen it in use, with morning light streaming through the windows and the Bloomberg terminal quietly streaming market data across multiple screens. "Please, sit." He gestured to one of the leather chairs facing his desk. "Now tell me exactly what you saw in that contract." Lauren took a deep breath, forcing herself to focus on the facts rather than the way her uniform felt suddenly shabby in this space of obvious wealth. "The language, sir. It's designed to create urgency while promising impossible returns. My father," she paused, composing herself. "My father lost everything to a similar scheme. The exact same phrases. Risk-free, guaranteed returns, limited time opportunity. They're red flags." Mendoza leaned back in his chair, studying her with newfound interest. "You have remarkable attention to detail, Miss Patterson, and considerable courage to speak up." He reached for his phone. "Sarah, please get me everything we have on Kingston Global Ventures and contact our legal team immediately." Lauren shifted uncomfortably. "I should get back to work." "Actually, I have a proposal for you." Mendoza leaned forward, resting his elbows on his desk. "How would you feel about a position in our compliance department?" The offer hung in the air between them, as impossible as the morning's events. Lauren's mind raced to Michael, to Ryan, to the stack of medical bills waiting at home. I appreciate the offer, Mr. Mendoza, but I don't have the qualifications. I never finished college, and you have something more valuable: instinct and integrity." He smiled, and for the first time, Lauren noticed the warmth in his blue eyes. "We can provide the necessary training. The position includes full benefits, including comprehensive health insurance." The mention of health insurance made her heart skip a beat, thoughts immediately going to Ryan's treatments. But before she could respond, her phone buzzed again. Michael's morning reminder to take his allergy medication. "I need to think about it," she managed, standing up. "I have responsibilities, arrangements." "Of course." Mendoza handed her his business card, the heavy cardstock embossed with gold lettering. "Take the weekend to consider it. We can discuss details on Monday." As Lauren pushed her cart toward the elevator, her mind spinning, she heard him call out, "And Ms. Patterson, thank you." The morning sun had fully risen now, bathing the city in golden light. Lauren's phone buzzed again. "Mrs. Rodriguez sending a photo of Michael eating breakfast, his half-finished solar system model visible in the background." She smiled, touching the business card in her pocket. For the first time in years, she felt something she'd almost forgotten: hope. The week following Lauren's unexpected intervention passed in a whirlwind of changes. The pristine halls of Mendoza Investments buzzed with whispers about the cleaning lady who had saved the company from a multi-million-dollar fraud scheme. Lauren found herself navigating between two worlds: her familiar routine of early morning cleaning shifts and her new role shadowing Jessica Chen, the sharp-minded head of compliance. "The key is to look for inconsistencies," Jessica explained, her designer glasses perched on her nose as she guided Lauren through a stack of investment proposals. "See how this footnote contradicts the main clause? That's where they hide the truth." Lauren absorbed everything with the same attention to detail that had caught Arthur Mendoza's attention. Her new business attire, purchased with an advance from her significantly improved salary, still felt foreign, like a costume she was wearing in an elaborate play. "You're a natural," Jessica remarked one afternoon, watching Lauren dissect a particularly complex contract. "Most people get lost in the jargon, but you see right through it." The transition wasn't without its challenges. Sandra Mitchell from HR made her disapproval clear during the department orientation. "While Mr. Mendoza's unique hiring decisions are his prerogative," she said, sliding Lauren's paperwork across the desk, "maintaining the company's professional standards is mine. I trust you understand the expectations that come with this position? Lauren met her gaze steadily. Perfectly, Miss Mitchell. Just as I understand the difference between surface appearances and true value. The comment earned her a quiet smile from Robert Torres, the silver-haired VP of Operations who happened to be passing by. Later that day, he stopped by her newly assigned desk. I started in the mailroom 30 years ago, he shared, his Latino accent still strong despite decades in New York. Sandra's bark is worse than her bite. Just keep doing what you're doing. But the real challenges came from balancing her new life with her existing responsibilities. Michael's school was understanding about her changed schedule, but her brother Ryan's condition required constant attention. The hospital bills kept coming, even with her improved insurance, a reminder that her transformation had limits. Arthur Mendoza noticed her checking her phone during a particularly long board meeting. "Everything all right, Ms. Patterson?" he asked afterward, finding her in the break room. "Yes, I'm sorry about that. It's just, my brother's treatment schedule changed, and I'm trying to coordinate with the hospital." Instead of the reprimand she expected, Arthur's expression softened. "Tell me about your brother." That conversation, over coffee and disposable cups, marked a shift in their relationship. Lauren found herself sharing the story of Ryan's diagnosis, of selling their family home to pay for the first round of treatments, of Michael's unwavering belief that his uncle would get better. "The new insurance helps," she admitted, "but stage 4 lymphoma doesn't care about corporate benefits packages." Arthur listened intently, his usual commanding presence replaced by genuine concern. "Have you considered Mayo Clinic? They're doing innovative trials in immunotherapy." "On my salary, even with the promotion." Lauren shook her head, managing a slight smile. "We're making it work with what we have." The contrast between their worlds became even more apparent the following week, when Arthur's private elevator malfunctioned, forcing him to use the regular one. He found himself sharing the space with Lauren and her cleaning cart during her final week of morning shifts. "Last day of double duty?" he asked, noting her garment bag hanging from the cart. "Can't leave Mrs. Rodriguez without backup," Lauren explained. "She's agreed to keep helping with Michael in the mornings, but I'm still covering her grocery shopping and cleaning on weekends." Arthur's brow furrowed. "You're working 7 days a week? Single mom, sick brother, 8-year-old son," Lauren shrugged. "It's what needs to be done." The elevator stopped at the executive floor, and as they stepped out, Arthur paused. "You know, my son would have been about Michael's age." The personal revelation caught Lauren off guard. She'd heard rumors about the tragedy in Arthur's past, a car accident that had claimed his wife and young son 5 years ago, but he'd never spoken of it himself. "I'm sorry," she offered quietly. "Life has a way of taking unexpected turns," he replied, his voice distant. "The trick is recognizing the moments that matter." That evening, as Lauren rushed from the office to pick up Michael from his after-school program, she found a town car waiting outside the building. "Mr. Mendoza's orders," the driver explained, "for the rest of the week until you sort out your new schedule." Lauren's initial instinct was to refuse, but the thought of cutting 30 minutes off her commute, 30 minutes more with Michael, won out. As the car navigated through Manhattan traffic, she caught glimpses of the life she was now adjacent to. Boutique windows displaying clothes worth months of her old salary, restaurants where dinner for two cost more than her weekly grocery budget, people who walked with the confident air of never having to check their bank balance before making a purchase. The car stopped at Michael's school in Queens, where the sight of a luxury vehicle caused quite a stir among the waiting parents. Michael bounded out of the building, his backpack covered in solar system pins, and stopped short at the sight of the car. "Mom, is this ours?" "No, honey," Lauren laughed, hugging him close. "Just a loan from a friend." That night, after Michael was asleep, Lauren sat at their small kitchen table looking over the paperwork for Ryan's next round of treatment. A text message illuminated her phone. "I took the liberty of having Dr. Sarah Chen at Presbyterian review Ryan's case. She's one of the top lymphoma specialists in the country. She has an opening tomorrow at 10 a.m. if you're interested. No pressure." Arthur Lauren stared at the message for a long time, emotions warring inside her. Pride told her to maintain boundaries, to handle things on her own as she always had, but love for her brother, and the memory of her father's stubborn refusal to accept help until it was too late, pushed her to respond, "Thank you. We'll be there." The next morning, Lauren arrived at the office early, intending to thank Arthur in person, only to find him already in a heated discussion with James Warner, one of the men from the fraudulent investment scheme. "You're making a serious mistake, Arthur," James was saying, his voice carrying through the glass walls. "Lauren Patterson is a liability, a cleaning lady playing at corporate finance. It's only a matter of time before she embarrasses the company." "That liability saved us from $100 million fraud," Arthur replied coldly. "And I'd appreciate you addressing me as Mr. Mendoza. We're not friends, James, especially after what your risk-free investment almost cost this company." "We all know why you're really keeping her around," James sneered, "playing savior to the pretty young single mother. What would the board say about that?" Arthur's voice turned dangerous. "Careful, James. Your firm is already under SEC investigation, thanks to Ms. Patterson's observations. Don't give me a reason to share additional concerns with the authorities." Lauren stepped back from the door, her heart pounding. She had known there would be resistance to her presence, but hearing it laid out so starkly, and hearing Arthur's defense, brought the reality of her situation into sharp focus. She turned to leave, only to find Robert Torres standing behind her, a knowing look in his eyes. "The vultures are circling," he observed quietly. "They're scared of you, you know, not because of where you came from, but because of what you represent. Change, authenticity, things that terrify men like James Warner." "I don't want to cause problems for Mr. Mendoza," Lauren admitted. "Arthur?" Robert chuckled. "Trust me, he can handle himself. I've known him for 20 years, since before he took over from his father. I've never seen him more sure of a decision than he is about you." The weight of those words stayed with Lauren throughout the day, through meetings and contract reviews, through Dr. Chen's surprisingly hopeful assessment of Ryan's condition, through the evening town car ride where Michael excitedly told her about his day. Later that night, she received another text from Arthur. "Dr. Chen spoke highly of your brother's fighting spirit. Must run in the family. Dinner tomorrow to discuss his treatment options? Bring Michael. I know a place that makes great pizza." Lauren looked around her small apartment, at the second-hand furniture, and the carefully maintained illusion of stability she'd built for her son. She thought of Arthur's corner office with its view of the city, of his luxury penthouse on the Upper East Side that she'd heard about but never seen. Two different worlds. But then she thought of his eyes when he mentioned his own son, of the way he listened, really listened, when she spoke, of how he saw her for who she was rather than where she came from. "Michael loves pizza," she typed back, "but I'm paying my share." The response came quickly. "I wouldn't expect anything less from you, Ms. Patterson." As she got ready for bed, Lauren caught her reflection in the bathroom mirror. She was still the same person who had pushed a cleaning cart through Mendoza Investments just days ago, but something had changed. For the first time in years, she was allowing herself to see possibilities rather than just responsibilities. Her phone buzzed one final time. "By the way, regarding what you overheard this morning, James Warner has been banned from the building. We protect our own at Mendoza Investments." Lauren smiled, thinking of Robert's words about change and authenticity. Maybe some risks were worth taking, even for someone who had spent years playing it safe. Tomorrow she would have pizza with her son and her boss. No, her friend, and maybe, just maybe, take another step toward whatever future was unfolding before her. In the quiet of her Queen's apartment, as the city hummed outside her window, Lauren Patterson began to understand that sometimes the biggest risks in life aren't the ones that show up in contracts or investment proposals. Sometimes they're the ones that require opening your heart to new possibilities, even when, especially when, they seem to come from a world apart from your own. The late summer evening at Grimaldi's Pizza in Brooklyn marked the beginning of something none of them had anticipated. Michael sat between Lauren and Arthur, his face lit up with excitement as he explained his solar system project to Arthur, who listened with genuine interest, asking questions that made the 8-year-old beam with pride. "And my teacher said I was the only one who remembered to include Pluto, even though it's not officially a planet anymore," Michael explained, gesturing with a slice of pizza. "That shows attention to detail," Arthur smiled, shooting a knowing look at Lauren. "Like mother, like son." The simple dinner stretched into a walk along Brooklyn Bridge Park, the Manhattan skyline glittering across the water. Michael ran ahead to the playground, leaving Lauren and Arthur on a bench overlooking the East River. "Thank you," Lauren said quietly. "Not just for dinner, but for everything with Ryan's treatment. Dr. Chen thinks the new immunotherapy protocol might actually work." "Lauren," Arthur turned to face her, his expression serious. "You need to stop thanking me. What you did for the company exposing that fraud, you saved us from a disaster that would have cost thousands of jobs. If anything, I'm still in your debt." Before she could respond, Michael's voice rang out, "Mom, Arthur, watch this." They looked up to see him attempting an ambitious move on the monkey bars. What happened next seemed to unfold in slow motion. Michael's hand slipped, his small body twisting awkwardly in the air. Lauren was already running, but Arthur reached him first, catching Michael before he hit the ground. The boy's face was pale with shock, but he was otherwise unharmed. "I got you, buddy," Arthur said softly, still holding Michael close. "I got you." That night, after Michael was safely tucked into bed, Lauren sat in her quiet kitchen, replaying the moment in her mind. The look on Arthur's face when he caught Michael, it wasn't just concern or quick reflexes. It was something deeper, more primal, the instinct of a father. The next morning brought unexpected challenges. Lauren arrived at work to find the office in chaos. News had broken about Kingston Global Ventures' fraud scheme, and reporters were swarming the building, hungry for details about how one of New York's most prestigious investment firms had nearly fallen victim to the scam. "Ms. Patterson," a reporter called out as she tried to enter the building. "Is it true you were working as a janitor when you uncovered the fraud? How long have you been involved with Arthur Mendoza? Sources say you have no formal financial training. How did you spot what seasoned investors missed?" Security rushed to escort her inside, but the damage was done. By noon, social media was buzzing with speculation about the Cinderella of Wall Street and her relationship with the billionaire CEO of Mendoza Investments. Sandra Mitchell appeared at Lauren's desk, her expression grave. "Mr. Mendoza wants to see you in the conference room. The board has called an emergency meeting." Lauren's heart sank as she entered the room. Arthur sat at the head of the table, surrounded by board members in expensive suits, their faces a mix of concern and judgment. "Ms. Patterson," Gerald Winston, the lead director, began, "while we appreciate your contribution to the company, this media circus is becoming a liability. There are questions about proper hiring procedures, about your qualifications, about the nature of your relationship with Mr. Mendoza." "That's enough, Gerald," Arthur's voice cut through the tension. "Lauren Patterson saved this company millions of dollars and potentially saved all of your jobs. Her instincts and integrity are exactly what we need more of at Mendoza Investments." "Arthur," a female board member interjected gently, "no one is questioning Ms. Patterson's integrity. But surely you can see how this looks. The timing, the publicity, how it looks." Arthur stood, his voice dangerously quiet. "How it looks is that we nearly fell for a massive fraud because we were too caught up in appearances. How it looks is that someone with real-world experience and genuine insight saw what all our Ivy League MBAs missed. How it looks doesn't concern me nearly as much as how it is." Lauren found her voice. "I appreciate everyone's concern, but I'm not here for appearances or publicity. I'm here to work, to learn, and to contribute. If that's not enough—" "It's more than enough," Arthur interrupted, but Lauren held up her hand. "Please, let me finish. If that's not enough, I understand. But I won't apologize for where I came from or for accepting help when it was offered. My father's pride cost our family everything. I won't make the same mistake." The room fell silent. Gerald Winston studied her for a long moment before nodding slowly. "Well said, Miss Patterson. Perhaps we've been too hasty in our judgments." As the board members filed out, Arthur remained behind, watching Lauren with an unreadable expression. "You never cease to amaze me," he said finally. "Arthur," Lauren began, but her phone buzzed. A text from the hospital. Her face went pale as she read it. "What's wrong?" "It's Ryan. They're saying he's having a bad reaction to the new treatment. I need to go." Arthur was already reaching for his phone. "I'll have my car take you." The next hours were a blur of hospital corridors and medical terminology. Ryan's condition had deteriorated rapidly, his body rejecting the aggressive new treatment protocol. Lauren sat by his bed, holding his hand, while Michael slept curled up in a chair nearby, exhausted from worry about his uncle. Around midnight, Lauren stepped out to get coffee and found Arthur in the waiting room, his suit jacket discarded, tie loosened, looking as if he'd been there for hours. "You didn't have to come," she said, but her voice broke on the words. Arthur stood, closing the distance between them. "Yes, I did." And then she was in his arms, finally allowing herself to break down, all the fear and stress and uncertainty of the past weeks pouring out. Arthur held her, one hand stroking her hair, offering silent strength. "I can't lose him," she whispered against his shirt. "He's all Michael and I have left of our family." "You have more family than you think," Arthur said softly. "Let me help, Lauren. Not as your boss, not as some billionaire with resources, but as someone who—" He paused, choosing his words carefully. "As someone who cares about you. Both of you." Lauren pulled back slightly, looking up at him. In the harsh fluorescent light of the hospital waiting room, she saw past the polished exterior of the successful CEO to the man beneath, a man who had lost his own family and recognized the precious fragility of love and connection. "I'm scared," she admitted. "I know, but you're not alone anymore." The moment was interrupted by Dr. Chen's arrival. "Ms. Patterson, your brother's stabilized. We're adjusting the treatment protocol, and I've consulted with colleagues at Mayo Clinic. There are other options we can explore." Lauren sagged with relief and Arthur's arm tightened around her waist, supporting her. Dr. Chen glanced between them, a knowing look in her eyes. "Get some rest," she advised. "Both of you. Ryan's going to need your strength in the coming weeks." Later, as dawn began to break over the city, Arthur drove Lauren and a still sleeping Michael home in his Bentley. The streets were quiet, the city holding its breath between night and day. "Stay home today," Arthur said as they pulled up to her building. "Take care of your family." "Arthur," Lauren turned to him, suddenly needing him to understand something. "Last night, what you said about helping, I need you to know that I'm not looking for a savior. I've never wanted that." "I know," he smiled, reaching over to brush a strand of hair from her face. "That's one of the things I love about you." The word hung between them, unplanned but undeniable. Lauren's breath caught, and Arthur's hand stilled against her cheek. "I should go up," she whispered, but didn't move. "You should," he agreed, but his eyes never left hers. The moment stretched, filled with possibility and fear, attraction and hesitation, the weight of their different worlds and the bridges they'd begun to build between them. Finally, Lauren leaned forward and pressed a soft kiss to his cheek. "Thank you," she murmured, then gathered Michael in her arms and stepped out of the car. Arthur watched until she disappeared into the building, his hand touching the spot where her lips had been, understanding that everything had changed. The carefully maintained boundaries between them had shifted, like tectonic plates beneath the surface of their professional relationship, creating something new and undefined and terrifying in its potential. In her apartment, Lauren laid Michael in his bed and stood at her window, watching Arthur's car pull away. Her phone buzzed with a message. "Try to sleep. I'll check on Ryan later. And Lauren, we should talk when you're ready." She touched her fingers to her lips, still feeling the warmth of his cheek, the subtle scent of his cologne, the solid strength of him in the hospital waiting room. Yes, they needed to talk. About boundaries and expectations, about the complications of their professional relationship, about the media circus and the board's concerns. But for now, in the quiet of early morning, Lauren allowed herself to acknowledge what had been building for weeks. She was falling in love with Arthur Mendoza, not with his wealth or his power or his ability to help her family, but with the man who listened to her 8-year-old son explain the solar system, who caught Michael when he fell, who sat for hours in a hospital waiting room just so she wouldn't be alone. The realization should have terrified her. Instead, it felt like waking up from a long winter into the first warm day of spring, frightening in its intensity, but somehow, inexplicably, right. The next few days brought a whirlwind of changes. The media attention intensified, with financial news networks running special segments on the Cinderella of Wall Street story. Lauren's inbox filled with interview requests from major publications, all eager to tell the tale of the cleaning lady who saved a billion-dollar investment firm. "They're missing the real story," Robert Torres commented one morning, stopping by her desk with coffee. "About how authentic talent doesn't need an Ivy League degree to recognize fraud." Lauren appreciated his support, but the attention was taking its toll. Paparazzi had started camping outside her Queens apartment, forcing her to temporarily relocate Michael to Mrs. Rodriguez's daughter's house in Forest Hills. "I hate hiding," she confided to Jessica Chen during their lunch break. "It feels like I'm ashamed when I've done nothing wrong." Jessica, who had become a close friend and mentor, studied her thoughtfully. "You know what I think? I think this isn't about shame at all. It's about protection, protecting Michael, protecting your privacy, protecting whatever's growing between you and Arthur. The mention of Arthur made Lauren's chest tighten. Since that night at the hospital, something had shifted between them. Their professional interactions remained perfectly appropriate, but there was an undercurrent of unspoken understanding, of shared moments that went beyond the boundaries of boss and employee. "I don't know what I'm doing, Jessica," Lauren admitted. "Everything's happening so fast. Ryan's treatment, the media circus, the board's concerns, and Arthur. Sometimes the biggest risks aren't in the contracts we review," Jessica smiled, echoing Lauren's own thoughts from days earlier. "But from what I've seen, you're pretty good at recognizing which risks are worth taking." That afternoon, Lauren received an unexpected visit from Sandra Mitchell. The HR director's usually pristine appearance showed signs of strain, her Chanel suit slightly rumpled, her expression troubled. "I owe you an apology, Ms. Patterson," Sandra began, surprising Lauren. "I let my preconceptions cloud my judgment. The way you handled the board meeting, how you've conducted yourself through this media storm, I was wrong about you." Lauren studied the woman who had initially been one of her strongest opponents. "Thank you, Sandra. That means a lot." Sandra hesitated. "Be careful with Arthur. Not because of the company or appearances, but because I've known him since before the accident. He hasn't opened his heart to anyone since losing his family. Until now." The weight of Sandra's words followed Lauren through the rest of the day. When evening came, she found herself drawn to the executive floor, knowing Arthur would still be in his office. He always worked late on Thursdays. She found him standing at his window, the city lights creating a halo around his silhouette. He turned at her entrance, and for a moment, they simply looked at each other. "I got another call from Mayo Clinic today," he said finally. "They're very interested in Ryan's case. Dr. Chen thinks he might be a perfect candidate for their new trial. Arthur, before you say anything," he held up a hand, "this isn't about money or influence. This is about getting your brother the best possible care, the kind of care anyone would want for their family." The word family hung in the air between them. Lauren moved closer until she could see their reflections overlapping in the window glass. "When Michael was born," she said quietly, "I promised myself I would always put his needs first, that I would never let my personal life complicate his world. And now I'm standing here, looking at you, wondering if sometimes the best thing we can do for our family is allow it to grow." Arthur turned to face her fully, his eyes intense in the dimmed office light. "Lauren, I need you to know something. That night at the hospital, when I said I love you, it wasn't just about that moment. I've been falling in love with you since the day you had the courage to stop me from making a terrible mistake. Not because you were trying to impress me or gain anything, but because it was the right thing to do." Lauren's heart raced as he continued. "I love how you light up when you talk about Michael's science projects. I love your dedication to your brother, your integrity, your strength. I love that you never let your circumstances define you. And yes, I even love your stubborn pride that won't let you simply accept help without finding a way to give something in return." "Arthur," Lauren's voice wavered, "people will talk. They'll say I manipulated you, that I planned this somehow. Let them talk." He stepped closer, his hand finding hers. "We both know the truth, and the truth is, you've given me something I thought I'd lost forever. Hope. Hope that love isn't just something that happens once in a lifetime. Hope that family can be rebuilt, even after devastating loss." Lauren thought of Michael's face lighting up whenever Arthur was around, of the natural way they interacted over pizza and solar system projects. She thought of Ryan, fighting for his life with renewed determination, now that real hope for treatment was within reach. She thought of her father, and how his stubborn refusal to accept help had cost their family everything. "I'm scared," she admitted, echoing her words from the hospital. "Not of the media or the board or what people might say. I'm scared of how right this feels, when everything in my experience says it should be impossible." Arthur's free hand came up to cup her cheek, his thumb brushing away a tear she hadn't realized had fallen. "Maybe that's exactly why it is right. Because it's not about our positions or backgrounds or what anyone else thinks. It's about two people who recognize something in each other that transcends all those external factors." Lauren leaned into his touch, finally allowing herself to accept what her heart had known for weeks. "I love you too," she whispered, "and it terrifies me and thrills me, and makes me feel more alive than I have in years." The kiss that followed was gentle but profound, carrying the weight of their shared journey and the promise of what lay ahead. When they finally parted, Arthur rested his forehead against hers. "We'll figure this out," he promised. "The media, the board, the logistics, all of it. Together." Lauren nodded, thinking of Sandra's warning and Jessica's advice about risks worth taking. She thought of Robert's words about authenticity, and of Mrs. Rodriguez's knowing smile when she spoke of Arthur. "Together," she agreed, understanding that this moment marked not just a personal turning point, but a validation of every choice that had led her here. From the morning she spoke up about the fraudulent contract to the night she finally allowed herself to trust in something bigger than survival. Outside the window, New York City sparkled like a constellation of earthbound stars, bearing witness to a love story that defied societal expectations and reminded everyone that true connection knows no boundaries of class or circumstance. In Arthur's corner office, high above the streets where Lauren had once pushed her cleaning cart, two worlds merged into something new and beautiful and real. The New York Times headline glared from Lauren's computer screen: "Wall Street's Modern Cinderella, a love story or corporate liability." The article beneath detailed her rapid rise from cleaning staff to compliance officer, speculating about her relationship with Arthur Mendoza and questioning the objectivity of her position within the company. "Don't read that trash," Robert Torres said, closing her laptop with gentle firmness. "We have actual work to do." Lauren smiled gratefully at her mentor, but the words had already left their mark. The past month since their kiss in Arthur's office had been a delicate balance of professional dedication and personal evolution. Every decision, every interaction was scrutinized through the dual lenses of business necessity and potential scandal. "The Anderson merger documents need your review," Robert continued, dropping a thick folder on her desk. "And believe me, they're much more interesting than whatever those vultures are writing." Diving into work had become Lauren's refuge. She'd discovered a natural talent for identifying hidden risks in complex financial arrangements, earning reluctant respect from even her harshest critics within the firm. But success brought its own challenges. That evening, as she prepared to leave the office, Sandra Mitchell appeared at her door. "The board wants to discuss creating a new position," she said without preamble. "Deputy Director of Risk Assessment. They're considering you for the role." Lauren's heart skipped. "That's unexpected." "Is it?" Sandra raised an eyebrow. "Your work on the Kingston case didn't just save us from fraud, it's revolutionized how we evaluate potential investments. The board recognizes talent, regardless of its unconventional packaging." The opportunity was everything Lauren had dreamed of, but timing complicated matters. "People will say Arthur influenced the decision." "People will always talk," Sandra replied, echoing Arthur's words from weeks ago. "The question is, are you going to let that stop you from reaching your full potential?" The conversation weighed on Lauren as she rode the subway home. She'd insisted on maintaining her regular commute, despite Arthur's concerns about the paparazzi. Her phone buzzed with a text from Mrs. Rodriguez. Michael won first place in the science fair. Arthur came to support him. They're both waiting at the apartment with celebratory ice cream. The message brought tears to her eyes. While she'd been buried in merger documents, Arthur had stepped in to support her son's moment of triumph. It wasn't the first time he'd done so, quietly filling gaps in their lives without fanfare or expectation. She found them in the kitchen, Michael excitedly explaining his winning project, while Arthur listened intently, both of them with ice cream smudges on their faces. The sight made her throat tight with emotion. "Mom!" Michael bounced over to hug her. "Arthur helped me answer the judge's questions about gravitational fields. And guess what? Jenny Chen's dad works at NASA, and he said my project was college level." "That's amazing, sweetheart." Lauren hugged him back, meeting Arthur's eyes over their son's head. The word had started slipping into her thoughts recently. Their son. It terrified and thrilled her in equal measure. Later, after Michael was in bed, Arthur joined Lauren on their small balcony. The plastic chairs and cramped space were a far cry from his Upper East Side terrace, but he seemed more at home here than in his luxury apartment. "The board made their decision about the deputy director position," he said quietly. "I know, Sandra told me." Lauren studied his profile in the city lights. "Did you?" "I recused myself from the discussion entirely," Arthur assured her. "This was all you, Lauren. Your talent, your hard work, your integrity." She let out a breath she hadn't realized she'd been holding. "I'm scared, Arthur. Not of the job itself, but of everything it represents. The scrutiny, the responsibility, the changes it will bring to our lives." Tell me what you're really afraid of, he prompted gently. Lauren was quiet for a long moment. When my father lost everything, it wasn't just the money. It was his sense of self, his belief in his ability to protect our family. I watched him shrink under the weight of shame and helplessness. She turned to face Arthur fully. I'm afraid of losing myself in this transformation, the cleaning lady who knew who she was and what she stood for. Arthur took her hands in his. You know what I see when I look at you. I see the same woman who had the courage to speak up that morning in the conference room, the same mother who works tirelessly to give her son opportunities she never had, the same sister who fights relentlessly for her brother's health. Your circumstances are changing, Lauren, but your essence, your heart, your integrity, your strength, that remains constant. The press seems to think otherwise, she said wryly. Apparently I'm either a calculating social climber or a naive pawn in a corporate power play. And what do you think? Lauren thought about Michael's beaming face at the science fair, about Ryan's improving condition at Mayo Clinic, about the growing confidence she felt when analyzing complex financial documents. I think I'm finally becoming the person I was always meant to be, and that's okay. The realization felt like breaking through a wall she hadn't known she'd built around herself. Years of survival mode, of defining herself by her struggles and limitations, began to crack and fall away. Her phone buzzed, a message from Ryan, latest test results showing improvement, doctors optimistic. Also, cute nurse definitely flirting with me. Recovery has its perks. Lauren laughed through sudden tears, showing the message to Arthur. He's really getting better. You're both fighters, Arthur smiled, pulling her close. It's one of the many reasons I love you. The next morning, Lauren arrived at work to find Jessica waiting at her desk with coffee and a determined expression. We need to talk about the deputy director position, she said without preamble. Specifically, about why you're hesitating to accept it. I'm not hesitating, Lauren protested. I'm just processing, overthinking, letting imposter syndrome talk you out of an opportunity you've earned. Lauren sank into her chair. Is it that obvious? Only to someone who's been there, Jessica replied. When I first started here, I was the only Asian woman in senior management. Every decision, every success, every failure felt like it carried the weight of representation. But you know what I learned? What? That the only way to create real change is to step fully into your power. Own your success. Own your journey. Your story isn't just about you anymore, Lauren. It's about every person who's ever been told they don't belong in these halls. The words resonated with something deep inside Lauren. She thought about the cleaning staff who now smiled at her with a mix of pride and hope, about the young interns from non-traditional backgrounds who sought her mentorship, about Michael watching her navigate this transformation with wide-eyed wonder. Later that day, she called a meeting with the board. Standing in the same room where she'd defended herself months ago, Lauren felt a profound shift in her perspective. I'm honored to be considered for the deputy director position, she began, but before I accept, I need to be clear about something. My background, my journey to this point, they're not liabilities to be minimized or overcome. They're assets. They give me a unique perspective on risk, on human nature, on the real-world implications of our decisions. The board members exchanged glances. Gerald Winston leaned forward. Go on, Ms. Patterson. I propose expanding the role to include a new initiative, a diversity in finance program that actively recruits talent from non-traditional backgrounds, not as a PR move, but as a strategic investment in the future of this company. The silence that followed was broken by slow applause from Sandra Mitchell. Well, she smiled, it seems the position might have been undervalued. Perhaps we should discuss adjusting the compensation package to reflect these additional responsibilities. That evening, Lauren took Michael and Arthur to Grimaldi's to celebrate. As they walked along Brooklyn Bridge Park afterward, she watched her son run ahead with the same boundless energy he'd shown on that pivotal evening months ago. You know what's different this time? Arthur asked, following her gaze. What? I'm not afraid of him falling anymore. Because now we both know. He has two people ready to catch him. Lauren squeezed his hand, understanding the deeper truth in his words. They had all been falling in their own ways. Arthur from the isolation of grief, Lauren from the constraints of survival mode, Michael from the absence of a complete family unit. But in falling together, they had found something stronger than their individual fears. I accepted the position, she told him, but on my terms. No more hiding who I am or where I came from. Arthur's smile was radiant. "I wouldn't want you any other way." As they walked home through the city they both loved, Lauren reflected on how far she'd come from that morning with the cleaning cart. The path ahead still held challenges: the media scrutiny, the professional pressures, the complex dynamics of blending their lives. But she was no longer navigating it alone. More importantly, she was no longer navigating it in fear. The woman who had once defined herself by her limitations now saw possibilities everywhere she looked. In Michael's growing confidence, in Ryan's strengthening health, in Arthur's unwavering support, and in her own emerging leadership, she recognized the truth that had been there all along. Transformation wasn't about becoming someone new, but about finally having the courage to be who you truly are. The following weeks brought new challenges and opportunities. Lauren's diversity in finance initiative quickly gained traction, attracting attention from other Wall Street firms and financial media. The Wall Street Journal ran a feature on the program, highlighting its innovative approach to talent recruitment and development. "We've received over 300 applications in the past week alone," Jessica reported during their morning meeting, including several from current maintenance and support staff within various financial institutions. Lauren felt a particular pride in that detail. "Have Robert and the HR team started reviewing them?" "Yes, and that's not all," Jessica grinned. "Goldman Sachs called. They want to know if you'd be interested in speaking at their annual leadership conference. Topic: Breaking Barriers in Financial Services." The invitation would have terrified her just months ago. Now, Lauren felt a surge of excitement. "Set it up. But make sure they understand I'll be speaking about real systemic change, not just providing a feel-good story." Her growing confidence extended beyond the professional sphere. One evening, as she reviewed applications for the diversity program in Arthur's home office, she found herself redesigning entire portions of the company's recruitment strategy. "What if we created partnerships with community colleges?" she mused aloud. "Identify promising students early, offer internships, mentorship programs." Arthur looked up from his own work, watching her with a mixture of pride and amusement. "I love seeing you like this. You're not just adapting to this world anymore. You're reshaping it." "I had good teachers," she smiled, thinking of Robert's guidance, Jessica's support, and even Sandra's eventual advocacy. Speaking of teaching, Michael's school called today. They want to enter his science project in a statewide competition. "That's fantastic." Although Arthur's expression turned thoughtful. "We might need to discuss some logistics about that." "Logistics?" "Lauren, you're becoming a public figure in the financial world. Michael's school has already had to deal with photographers trying to get pictures of him. If he enters this competition, there will be more attention." The reality of their changing circumstances hit home. Lauren had been so focused on navigating her professional transformation that she hadn't fully processed how it would affect Michael's life. "Maybe we should wait," she said uncertainly. "Give things time to settle down. Or," Arthur suggested gently, "we could help him learn to handle the attention on his own terms, just like his mother is doing." The comparison made Lauren pause. She thought about the lessons she wanted to teach her son about facing challenges and embracing opportunities. "You're right," she decided, "but we do it as a family, all of us." The word family had taken on new meaning lately. Ryan's improving health had allowed him to visit more often, and the dynamics between all of them had evolved into something beautiful and unexpected. Arthur and Ryan had developed their own friendship, bonding over shared interests in technology and terrible action movies. Michael flourished under the attention of both men, his natural curiosity and intelligence nurtured by their different perspectives. The next major test came during a crucial board meeting about expanding the diversity initiative. Lauren stood before the executive committee, presenting her vision for transforming Mendoza Investments into a leader in inclusive finance. "The traditional pipeline is broken," she argued, her voice steady. "We're missing out on incredible talent because we're looking in the same places we always have. My own journey isn't just an anomaly. It's proof that excellence can come from unexpected sources." "The costs of this program are significant," one board member objected. "Training, mentorship, additional support services. The cost of maintaining the status quo is higher," Lauren countered. "How much did we almost lose to the Kingston fraud? How many other opportunities are we missing because we lack diverse perspectives in our decision-making process?" She could feel Arthur watching her, deliberately maintaining a professional distance during these meetings. Their relationship had evolved into a partnership of equals, each supporting the other while respecting professional boundaries. Gerald Winston cleared his throat. Ms. Patterson, while your passion is admirable, this represents a significant departure from our traditional operations. With respect, Mr. Winston, tradition isn't always the best guide for the future. When I was cleaning these offices, I saw things from a perspective none of you could have. That perspective saved this company millions. Imagine what other insights we're missing because we're not willing to look beyond our comfortable assumptions. The silence that followed was broken by Sandra Mitchell. I move to approve the full funding request for the diversity initiative with quarterly reviews and metrics-based assessment of outcomes. Seconded, Robert added immediately. The motion passed, though not unanimously. As the board members filed out, Gerald Winston lingered. You've proven me wrong, Ms. Patterson, he admitted. Not just about your capabilities, but about what's possible when we're willing to take bold risks. That night, Lauren celebrated with her family in her Queens apartment. Ryan, on a weekend pass from Mayo Clinic, was teaching Michael how to play chess, while Arthur prepared dinner in her small kitchen. You know, Ryan said quietly, as they watched Arthur and Michael argue playfully about the proper way to cook pasta, Dad would have loved him. Lauren felt tears prick her eyes. You think so? Are you kidding? A guy who sees people for who they are, not what they have, who loves his family fierce and true. That's exactly what Dad always wanted for us. The mention of their father brought a familiar ache, but it was different now, less raw, more bittersweet. I wish he could see all of this, Lauren said softly. He can, Ryan smiled, his face fuller and healthier than it had been in months. And he'd be so proud of you, sis. Not because of the fancy job or the newspaper articles, but because you never lost sight of what really matters. That night, after everyone had gone to bed, Lauren stood on her small balcony, looking out at the city lights. Arthur joined her, wrapping his arms around her from behind. Penny, for your thoughts. I was thinking about transformation, she said, leaning back against him. About how sometimes the biggest changes aren't the obvious ones, the job title or the bank account or the public recognition. Sometimes they're in the quiet moments, in the way we see ourselves and what we believe is possible. And how do you see yourself now? Lauren turned in his arms, looking up at the man who had helped her believe in second chances, in love, in career, in life itself. I see someone who's finally whole, she answered truthfully. Not because of what I've gained, but because I've stopped being afraid of wanting more. For myself, for Michael, for all of us. Arthur's kiss was gentle, full of understanding and shared dreams. Above them, the New York sky glittered with possibilities, each star a reminder that sometimes the most beautiful transformations happen not when we change who we are, but when we finally allow ourselves to become who we were always meant to be. The autumn wind whipped around the gleaming towers of Manhattan as Lauren stared at the email that would change everything. The Securities and Exchange Commission had launched a formal investigation into Mendoza Investments, focusing on recent hiring practices and potential conflicts of interest. Her name appeared prominently in the document. They're calling it preferential treatment and improper influence, Sandra Mitchell explained, her usually composed voice tight with concern. The complaint suggests that your relationship with Arthur compromised the company's decision-making process, specifically regarding the Kingston case and your subsequent promotion. Lauren felt the ground shift beneath her feet. All the progress, all the careful balance they'd maintained between personal and professional lines, it was all being questioned. Who filed the complaint? She asked, though she already suspected the answer. James Warner, Sandra confirmed. He's partnered with several former board members who opposed your diversity initiative. They're claiming your relationship with Arthur began before the Kingston incident, suggesting you manipulated events to gain position and influence. The accusation struck at Lauren's deepest fears, that people would always see her as an opportunist, that her relationship with Arthur would forever taint her professional accomplishments. We need to get ahead of this, Robert Torres argued during an emergency meeting in Arthur's office. Release a statement, show complete transparency about the timeline of events. No, Lauren interrupted. That makes it sound like we have something to defend, like our relationship is something shameful that needs explanation. Arthur, who had been unusually quiet, finally spoke. The board is calling for an emergency session. They're suggesting temporary leadership changes until the investigation is complete. They want you to step down, Lauren's voice cracked. "They want both of us to take a leave of absence." Arthur's face was drawn with tension. They're concerned about the appearance of impropriety. The news hit the financial media like a tsunami. By evening, every major network was running the story. Wall Street's Cinderella story unravels. SEC investigates Mendoza investments. Lauren's phone buzzed constantly with messages from well-meaning friends and colleagues, but it was a call from Michael's school that finally broke her. A reporter had tried to interview him during recess, asking about his mother's relationship with the rich man. "That's it," Arthur said, finding her in tears in her office. "We're moving you and Michael to my place until this dies down. No arguments." But Lauren shook her head. "No, Arthur. That's exactly what they want. To make it look like I'm running to your protection, living off your wealth. I won't give them that satisfaction." "Lauren, be reasonable." "I am being reasonable," she cut him off. "I've worked too hard to establish myself as an independent professional. Moving into your penthouse now would validate every accusation they're making." Their first real argument exploded in the privacy of his office, years of unspoken fears and insecurities finally surfacing. "Why is it so hard for you to accept help?" Arthur demanded. "After everything we've been through, do you still not trust that what we have is real?" "Of course I trust it's real," Lauren shot back. "But you don't understand what it's like to have every achievement questioned, to have people assume you slept your way into success, to what? To have people judge you. You don't think I've been judged? The grieving widower who fell for an employee half his age." The words hung between them like shattered glass. Lauren stepped back, physically rocked by the pain in his voice. "Arthur, I didn't mean—" "No, you're right," he said quietly. "I don't fully understand your struggles. But you don't fully understand mine either. Do you know what it's like to finally find love again? Only to watch the woman you love doubt herself at every turn? To see her question her worth because of me?" The tension was interrupted by Lauren's phone. Ryan calling from Mayo Clinic. With trembling hands, she answered, putting it on speaker. "Sis? Arthur? Turn on CNBC now." They rushed to the TV mounted in Arthur's office. James Warner was giving a live interview, looking polished and practiced as he delivered his calculated attack. "The question isn't just about romantic involvement," he was saying. "It's about the integrity of one of Wall Street's most respected institutions. How can shareholders trust a CEO who promotes his girlfriend from janitor to executive within months? How can they trust a company where personal relationships clearly influence major financial decisions?" "Turn it off," Lauren whispered, but Arthur held up his hand. "Wait." The interview cut to a split screen and Lauren's heart stopped. Gerald Winston, chairman of the board, was speaking from the steps of Mendoza Investments. "I've known Arthur Mendoza for 30 years, Gerald began. "I've watched him build this company with integrity and vision. When he lost his family, many of us feared he'd lost his way. We were wrong. In Lauren Patterson, he found not just love, but a partner who embodies everything our company stands for: integrity, courage, and the ability to see value where others see only surface." The camera pulled back to show other board members standing with Gerald, including Sandra Mitchell and Robert Torres. "As for the SEC investigation," Gerald continued, "we welcome it, because it will show what we already know, that Lauren Patterson's rise within this company is based on merit, not favor. Her identification of the Kingston fraud saved our investors billions. Her diversity initiative is revolutionizing how we recruit talent. And yes, she and Arthur Mendoza fell in love. Not before she saved our company, not as part of some calculated plan, but as two people of integrity finding each other against all odds." Gerald's face hardened as he addressed the accusations directly. "To those suggesting impropriety, I say this: examine your own prejudices. Why is it so hard to believe that talent can come from any background? That love can find us when we least expect it? That sometimes the best person for the job might not fit your preconceived notions of what an executive should look like?" Lauren and Arthur watched in stunned silence as other board members stepped forward, each sharing stories of Lauren's contributions to the company. Sandra Mitchell detailed the rigorous process behind her promotion. Robert Torres explained how her insights had transformed their risk assessment procedures. The final speaker was Jessica Chen. "I've mentored Lauren since she joined our compliance team," she said firmly. "Her relationship with Arthur Mendoza has nothing to do with her professional capabilities. If anything, she's worked twice as hard to prove herself because of it. The real scandal here isn't their love story. It's the persistent belief that women can't earn success on their own merits. As the broadcast continued, Arthur's office phone lit up with messages of support from clients, partners, and even competitors. Ryan called back, his voice thick with emotion. "Did you see that? They're standing with you. Both of you." Lauren turned to Arthur, tears streaming down her face. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I've been so afraid of appearing weak, of depending on you, that I forgot what real partnership means." Arthur pulled her close, his own eyes wet. "And I'm sorry for not understanding how much pressure you've been under. You're the strongest person I know, Lauren. Not because you never need help, but because you've taught me that real strength is about being vulnerable enough to let love in." Their moment was interrupted by a commotion outside. Michael burst into the office, followed by Mrs. Rodriguez, who was trying to apologize for the interruption. "Mom, Dad, did you see? Mr. Winston told those mean people to stop lying about you." The word "Dad," spoken for the first time, hit Arthur like a physical force. He dropped to one knee, pulling Michael into a fierce hug. Lauren watched them, her heart so full it hurt. This was her family. Not perfect, not conventional, but real and strong and worth fighting for. Sandra appeared in the doorway, her expression urgent. "The SEC investigators are here. They want to speak with both of you." "Together?" Lauren asked, reaching for Arthur's hand. Sandra smiled. "Together?" The next hours were intense but clarifying. Lauren and Arthur presented a detailed timeline of their relationship, supported by documentation from HR and testimonials from colleagues. They showed how every decision, every promotion, every project had been vetted through proper channels. "And the Kingston fraud?" the lead investigator asked. "You maintain that you identified it based solely on language patterns?" "Yes," Lauren said firmly, "because I'd seen similar patterns in the contract that destroyed my father's life. Would you like to review those documents as well? I've kept them all these years as a reminder of why financial integrity matters." By evening, the tide had turned. The SEC team found no evidence of impropriety, and James Warner's credibility crumbled as his connections to Kingston Global Ventures came to light. Later, as the city lights twinkled outside Arthur's office, Lauren stood with her family. Michael doing homework at Arthur's desk, Ryan lounging on the leather sofa, sharing recovery stories with Robert and Jessica, Mrs. Rodriguez fussing over everyone with coffee and cookies she'd somehow produced out of nowhere. "Penny for your thoughts?" Arthur asked, joining her at the window. "I was thinking about that morning with the cleaning cart," she smiled. "How sometimes the biggest moments in our lives come disguised as ordinary days." "Nothing about you has ever been ordinary, Lauren Patterson." She turned to face him fully. "I want to move in with you," she said quietly. "Not because I'm afraid, or because I need protection, but because we've wasted too much time letting fear dictate our choices." Arthur's smile was radiant. "I was hoping you'd say that. Because..." He reached into his pocket and dropped to one knee, pulling out a ring that sparkled like captured starlight. "Lauren Patterson, you've taught me that real love isn't about saving someone or being saved. It's about standing together, growing together, facing whatever comes as equals. Will you marry me?" The room fell silent, all eyes on them. Lauren looked around at the faces of her family, blood and chosen, and felt the last walls around her heart crumble. "Yes," she whispered. Then louder, "Yes!" The office erupted in cheers. Michael launched himself at them both, creating a family hug that set Lauren's engagement ring glinting in the city lights. Ryan wiped away tears while trying to pretend he wasn't crying. Robert and Jessica exchanged knowing looks, and Mrs. Rodriguez muttered happy prayers in Spanish. As congratulations and hugs flowed around them, Lauren caught Arthur's eye. In his gaze, she saw everything they had overcome, the social barriers, the professional challenges, their own fears and doubts, and everything that lay ahead. The SEC investigation would clear them completely. James Warner would face his own legal troubles. Their story would inspire others to believe in second chances, in love that transcends class and circumstance, in the power of being true to yourself. But in that moment, none of that mattered. What mattered was this: a family forged by choice and strengthened by adversity, a love that had transformed not just their lives, but an entire corporate culture, and the understanding that sometimes the most powerful thing we can do is simply believe in ourselves, in each other, and in the possibility that our greatest challenges can lead us to our greatest joys. Outside, New York City sparkled with endless possibility, bearing witness to a love story that defied expectations and reminded everyone that true connection knows no boundaries. In the end, Lauren and Arthur's story wasn't just about a cleaning lady and a CEO finding love. It was about two souls recognizing themselves in each other, about family being something we create through love and choice, and about the courage to stand firm in your truth, even when the world tries to doubt it. As the celebration continued around them, Arthur pulled Lauren close and whispered, "Ready for our next chapter?" Lauren smiled, holding Michael with one arm and Arthur with the other, feeling Ryan's supportive hand on her shoulder. More than ready. Together. And in that moment, surrounded by love and triumph, Lauren knew that while their story might have seemed like a fairy tale to the outside world, it was something far more precious. It was real, it was earned, and it was only just beginning. The celebrations continued late into the evening, eventually moving to Arthur's penthouse where the entire extended Mendoza Investments family gathered to share in the joy. Lauren watched as Michael excitedly showed Ryan and Robert his newly designated room in what would soon be their home, complete with a telescope positioned perfectly to view the stars above Manhattan. "He's already planning the ceiling decorations," Arthur murmured, wrapping his arms around her from behind. "Something about a realistic star map that changes with the seasons." "Ambitious," Lauren smiled, leaning back against him. "Like father, like son?" The words made Arthur's breath catch and he tightened his embrace. "You know, when I lost David and Claire, I thought that part of my life was over. The chance to be a father, to have a real family again." "Arthur," Lauren turned in his arms, seeing the mixture of joy and old pain in his eyes. "Tell me about them. About David and Claire. Michael should know about his brother and the woman who first made you a father." It was a threshold they hadn't yet crossed, speaking openly about Arthur's first family, but tonight was about breaking down the last barriers between them. Arthur led her to the quiet of his study, where a single photograph sat on his desk, a smiling woman with kind eyes holding a laughing toddler. "Claire was a pediatric surgeon," he began softly. "We met when I was doing a hospital board fundraiser. She had this way of cutting through all the corporate speak, reminding everyone that we were there for the kids, not the publicity." As Arthur shared stories of his first family, Lauren felt another piece of their relationship click into place. This wasn't about replacing what he had lost, but about growing something new that honored the past while embracing the future. Their intimate moment was interrupted by Jessica's excited call from the living room. "You all need to see this." They returned to find everyone gathered around the television, where a special report was breaking. The SEC had just released preliminary findings, clearing Mendoza Investments of any wrongdoing. More significantly, they were launching a separate investigation into James Warner's connections to multiple fraudulent investment schemes. The patterns Ms. Patterson identified in the Kingston case have led us to uncover a broader network of financial fraud, the SEC spokesperson announced. Her unique perspective and attention to detail have proven invaluable to our ongoing investigation. Sandra raised her glass of champagne. "To Lauren Patterson, the woman who didn't just save our company, she's helping clean up all of Wall Street." As cheers erupted around them, Lauren felt a gentle tug on her sleeve. Michael stood there in his pajamas, fighting sleep, but determined to stay up for the celebration. "Mom," he whispered, "is it okay if I start calling Arthur Dad all the time now? Not just when I'm excited." Lauren knelt down to his level, aware of Arthur moving closer to hear the conversation. "Honey, that's something you, me, and Arthur should talk about together. How about tomorrow morning over breakfast?" Michael nodded seriously, then turned to Arthur. "But you want to be my dad, right? For real?" Arthur's voice was thick with emotion as he joined them on Michael's level. "More than anything in the world, buddy, but only if that's what you want too." Michael's response was to throw his arms around both of them, creating a family embrace that felt like coming home. The next morning brought a flurry of media coverage about the SEC findings and the engagement, but this time the tone was different. The Wall Street Journal ran an editorial praising Mendoza Investments for fostering a corporate culture where integrity and talent could rise from any level. CNBC invited Lauren to discuss her diversity initiative and its impact on traditional hiring practices in finance. "You've started a revolution," Robert observed, showing her the latest industry reports. 3 other major firms have already announced similar programs, but the real validation came in smaller moments. The cleaning staff greeting her with proud smiles and wedding planning advice. junior employees feeling empowered to share their insights in meetings, Michael's school calling to ask if she would speak at Career Day about her journey. A week after the engagement, Lauren received an unexpected visit in her office. Gerald Winston entered carrying a small wrapped package. "An engagement gift," he explained, though not a traditional one. Lauren opened it to find a framed newspaper clipping from 15 years ago, a small article about the investment scheme that had ruined her father's life. "I remembered it when you mentioned your father's experience," Gerald said quietly. "My firm almost invested in that scheme. Something felt off about it, but I couldn't put my finger on what. If someone with your insight had been in our compliance department, then—" Lauren traced the worn newsprint, thinking of her father. "He would have been proud," she said softly, "not of the job title or the social status, but of the fact that I helped prevent other families from going through what we did." "He raised a remarkable daughter," Gerald smiled. "Which reminds me, the board had another meeting this morning." Lauren tensed slightly, but Gerald's expression was warm. "We've decided to create a new position, Chief Ethics and Compliance Officer. The role would oversee all risk assessment, regulatory compliance, and corporate responsibility initiatives, including your diversity program. We'd like you to take it." "Gerald, He held up a hand. "This has nothing to do with Arthur or the engagement. This is about recognizing talent and promoting the kind of leadership our industry desperately needs." The vote was unanimous. That evening, Lauren took Arthur and Michael to her old apartment in Queens. Mrs. Rodriguez joined them for a final dinner in the small kitchen where so many of their early moments had been shared. "I remember the first time Arthur came here," Mrs. Rodriguez mused, serving her famous arroz con pollo. "So fancy in his expensive suit, but he ate seconds and asked for the recipe." "Best arroz con pollo in New York," Arthur confirmed, helping himself to another portion. "Some things can't be improved by a fancy restaurant." As they packed up the apartment, Lauren found the old name badge from her cleaning job. She showed it to Arthur, who took it reverently. "This should be framed in your new office," he said, "next to your Chief Ethics and Compliance Officer nameplate." "Our story really is impossible, isn't it?" Lauren mused, looking around at the apartment that had been her safe harbor through so many struggles. "Not impossible," Arthur corrected, pulling her close. "Just proof that the best things in life don't follow conventional paths." Michael emerged from his room, carrying the solar system model that had started it all. "Ready to take this to our new home?" "Our new home." The words echoed in Lauren's heart as they made their final trip from Queens to the Upper East Side. But this time it wasn't about leaving one world for another. It was about bringing the best of both worlds together, the warmth and authenticity of her Queens life, with the opportunities and possibilities of Arthur's Manhattan world. That night, standing on the penthouse balcony with the city spread out before them, Lauren thought about all the cleaning carts she had pushed through prestigious buildings, all the dreams she had deferred, all the times she had chosen survival over aspiration. The woman she had been then would never have believed this future possible, but as Arthur's arms encircled her, as Michael's laughter drifted from his new room where he and Ryan were setting up his telescope, as Mrs. Rodriguez's voice carried from the kitchen where she was teaching the private chef her secret recipes, Lauren understood that this wasn't just a happy ending, it was a beginning built on courage, integrity, and the kind of love that transforms not just two people, but entire worlds. Their story would continue to inspire others, to challenge assumptions, to prove that sometimes the greatest risk is not taking a chance on love. "What are you thinking about?" Arthur asked, pressing a kiss to her temple. Lauren smiled, touching the engagement ring that sparkled like their shared future. "I'm thinking that some cleaning ladies don't just transform into princesses in fairy tales. Sometimes they become chief ethics officers and change the whole kingdom instead." Arthur laughed, the sound full of joy and promise. "And some CEOs don't need a glass slipper to recognize their soulmate. Sometimes they just need the courage to hear a whispered warning about a fraudulent contract." Above them, the New York sky sparkled with possibilities, each star a reminder that love, like success, comes in many forms, and sometimes the most beautiful stories are the ones that break all the rules to write their own happy ending. 6 months after the engagement, Lauren stood in front of the mirror in her old apartment building, now wearing a custom-designed wedding dress that somehow managed to bridge the gap between Park Avenue elegance and Queens practicality. Mrs. Rodriguez fussed with the train while Jessica and Sandra made final adjustments to her veil. Something old, Mrs. Rodriguez said, pinning a delicate brooch to the dress, a family heirloom that had survived their financial hardships. Your mother wore this at her wedding. Something new, Jessica added, fastening a tennis bracelet that the women from Mendoza Investments had gifted her collectively. Something borrowed, Sandra smiled, arranging a pair of pearl earrings that had been Claire's, Arthur's first wife. The gesture represented months of healing and acceptance, of understanding that love doesn't diminish when it makes room for more. And something blue. Ryan appeared in the doorway, looking healthy and strong in his tuxedo. In his hands, he held a blue silk handkerchief embroidered with their father's initials. Found this in Mom's old keepsake box. Thought Dad should be here somehow. Lauren hugged her brother carefully, mindful of her makeup. He is here. They all are. The wedding venue was a surprise Arthur had arranged with Michael's help, the Metropolitan Museum of Art's Temple of Dender. The ancient Egyptian temple, with its limestone walls and reflecting pool, created an atmosphere of timeless romance. Because your love story is going into the history books, Michael had explained proudly when they revealed the location. Just like these ancient artifacts. Now, as Lauren prepared to walk down the aisle, she thought about all the paths that had led to this moment. The cleaning cart that had started it all sat in a place of honor near the temple entrance, polished and decorated with flowers, a symbol of their unique journey. The guest list reflected the bridges they'd built between their different worlds. Investment bankers mingled with maintenance staff. Wall Street executives chatted with Lauren's old diner colleagues. Her former cleaning team sat in places of honor, their children playing with the offspring of board members. Robert Torres appeared at her door. Ready? Arthur's about to wear a hole in the marble floor with his pacing. Lauren took his arm, touched that he had agreed to walk her down the aisle. Robert, I never properly thanked you for believing in me from the beginning. You thank me every day by proving me right, he smiled. Now come on, let's go make history. The ceremony was a blend of traditional elegance and personal touches. Michael, serving as best man despite his young age, delivered the rings with impressive solemnity. Ryan read a poem their father had once loved, about the power of perseverance and love. When it came time for the vows, Arthur spoke first. Lauren, you came into my life like a whisper of truth in a room full of lies. You showed me that real love isn't about saving or being saved. It's about standing together, growing together, facing whatever comes as equals. You and Michael haven't just given me a second chance at love and family. You've given me a second chance at being truly alive. I promise to honor that gift every day, to support your dreams as you've supported mine, and to never forget that the greatest wealth in life isn't measured in dollars, but in moments of real connection. Lauren's voice trembled slightly as she responded, Arthur, you saw me when I was invisible to the world, not just as someone to help, but as someone to respect, to learn from, to love. You taught me that accepting love doesn't make us weak, it makes us stronger. Together with Michael, we've created something more precious than any fairy tale, a real family built on truth, respect, and the courage to believe in second chances. I promise to face every challenge by your side, to keep pushing for positive change in our corner of the world, and to never let fear of what others might think stop us from living our truth. The reception that followed was a celebration of worlds converging. The menu featured everything from caviar to Mrs. Rodriguez's famous arroz con pollo, which the celebrity chef had insisted on learning to prepare properly. Michael delivered a speech that moved everyone to tears, speaking about how he'd gained not just a father, but a whole new understanding of what family could be. The biggest surprise came during the father-daughter dance. Instead of a traditional ballad, the orchestra began playing the same song that had often played on Lauren's cleaning cart radio during her early morning shifts. Arthur led her in a waltz as natural as their love story, elegant yet accessible, refined yet real. Did you request this? Lauren asked, smiling up at her new husband. Actually, it was Gerald's idea, Arthur grinned. Said it was time Wall Street learned to dance to a different tune. As the evening progressed, Lauren found quiet moments to observe the beautiful tapestry their lives had become. Ryan deep in conversation with Dr. Chen about his upcoming final treatments and his plans to start a support program for other cancer patients. Michael showing his school friends around the temple, proudly explaining the historical significance of each artifact, with knowledge gleaned from countless museum visits with Arthur. Sandra Mitchell and Mrs. Rodriguez exchanged recipes and life advice, while Robert Torres taught some junior analysts the importance of looking beyond surface appearances. The cleaning staff who had once been Lauren's colleagues now saw a path forward that hadn't existed before. Inspired by her journey, but determined to write their own stories. The media had tried to cover the wedding, but Arthur and Lauren had kept it private, sharing only a single photo that spoke volumes. The cleaned-up cleaning cart decorated with flowers, a symbol of their unique love story and the changes they hoped to inspire in the corporate world. Later that night, at their penthouse reception after-party, Lauren slipped away to the balcony for a moment of reflection. The city lights sparkled below, each one representing a story, a dream, a possibility. Having second thoughts? Arthur's voice carried a hint of teasing as he joined her. Actually, I was thinking about Monday, she smiled, turning to face him. Monday? We're about to leave for our honeymoon and you're thinking about work. The Diversity Initiative's first-class graduates on Monday, she reminded him. 25 people from non-traditional backgrounds starting their finance careers. That's a pretty good wedding gift. Arthur pulled her close. Speaking of gifts, there's something I need to show you. He led her to his home office, their home office now, and handed her a document. Lauren's eyes widened as she read it. You're creating a foundation. We're creating a foundation, he corrected. The Patterson Mendoza Educational Trust. Full scholarships for children of service workers who want to enter finance. Plus, stipends for living expenses, mentorship programs, the whole package. Lauren traced the foundation's mission statement, recognizing pieces of her own story in its goals. This is... Arthur, this is incredible. There's more, he said softly. The first scholarship has already been awarded to a teenage girl in Connecticut whose father lost everything in a financial scam. She wants to study corporate law and protect other families from fraud. Tears spilled down Lauren's cheeks as the symmetry of it hit her. Full circle, she whispered. Full circle, Arthur agreed, wiping away her tears, but also the beginning of something new. Every life you touch, every barrier you break, it creates ripples we may never fully see. A knock at the door interrupted them. Michael stood there in his little tuxedo, Ryan behind him. Mom, Dad, they're about to do the midnight countdown, and Aunt Jessica says you can't hide in the office at your own wedding reception. Lauren laughed, taking Arthur's hand. He's right. We have guests to attend to. We have family to attend to, Arthur corrected, scooping Michael up with his free arm. They rejoined the party just as the orchestra began playing again. The cleaning cart stood proudly among the elegant decorations, a reminder that love and success come in many forms. Lauren looked around at the faces of their gathered loved ones, blood relatives and chosen family, corporate executives and service workers, all celebrating not just a marriage, but the power of authentic connection to transform lives. Happy? Arthur whispered in her ear as they swayed to the music. Lauren thought about the journey that had brought them here, from pushing a cleaning cart to running a compliance department, from single mother to partner in every sense, from survival mode to creating opportunities for others. Happy doesn't begin to cover it, she replied. This is something bigger. This is purpose. As midnight approached, Lauren raised her glass to toast not just their marriage, but everything it represented, the breaking of barriers, the power of second chances, the courage to rewrite old stories. Their love story had become more than just a modern fairy tale. It had become a catalyst for change, a reminder that sometimes the most powerful transformations begin with a single moment of courage. The cleaning cart that had started it all now stood as a symbol of hope in the corporate lobby of Mendoza Investments, its story engraved on a small plaque. Every great journey begins with the courage to take the first step. And in the years to come, whenever anyone doubted that real change was possible in the marble halls of Wall Street, they would tell the story of the cleaning lady and the CEO who proved that love, integrity, and courage could transform not just two lives, but an entire world. As the celebration continued around them, Lauren and Arthur held each other close, their hearts beating in rhythm with the city that had witnessed their unlikely journey. They had rewritten the rules of both romance and corporate culture, proving that the greatest investments we make are not in stocks or bonds, but in believing in the power of love to bridge any divide. Michael squeezed between them for a family hug, his science-loving heart already planning their honeymoon stargazing sessions. Ryan raised his glass in a quiet toast, his health restored and his future bright. Mrs. Rodriguez wiped happy tears, while Robert and Jessica exchanged knowing looks, remembering the morning everything changed. In the end, their story wasn't just about a cleaning lady becoming an executive or a grieving CEO finding love again. It was about the courage to see beyond surface appearances, the strength to stand firm in your truth, and the power of love to transform not just individuals, but entire institutions. As they danced beneath the ancient temple's walls, surrounded by the family they had built and the changes they had inspired, Lauren and Arthur embodied a truth as old as the stone around them, that real love, like real change, begins with a single act of courage and grows through countless choices to believe in something bigger than ourselves. Their journey had only just begun, but they faced it together, ready to continue breaking barriers, building bridges, and proving that sometimes the most powerful stories are the ones that remind us that magic exists not in fairy tales, but in the courage to be authentically, unapologetically ourselves. 5 years later, the sun painted golden stripes across the polished floors of Mendoza Investments as Lauren made her way through the familiar corridors. At her side, a young woman in a maintenance uniform walked with nervous energy. "Ms. Patterson Mendoza," the woman began, "I can't thank you enough for this opportunity." Lauren smiled, remembering her own journey. "Maria, you earned this. Your insights during the training program were exceptional. And please call me Lauren." They passed the cleaning cart display in the lobby, now a permanent installation that had become something of a lucky charm for employees. People often touched it before important meetings or major decisions, a reminder that greatness can come from anywhere. In her office, Lauren's walls told the story of the past 5 years. Photos of Michael's science fair victories, including his recent acceptance to MIT's early admission program at 16, pictures of Ryan's wedding to Dr. Chen, who had gone from his doctor to his wife, their love story another testament to unexpected connections. News clippings about the Patterson Mendoza Educational Trust, which had now helped over 300 students from service industry backgrounds enter the financial sector. The largest photo showed their family's latest addition, 3-year-old Claire Patterson Mendoza, named for Arthur's first wife but possessing Lauren's determined spirit. In the picture, she sat on Michael's shoulders while he explained the constellations, Arthur watching them both with infinite love. "Mom!" Michael's voice carried from the doorway. At 17, he'd grown tall like Arthur, but his eyes held Lauren's warmth. "Dad says to remind you about the anniversary celebration tonight. 10 years since that morning with the cleaning cart. 10 years that had transformed not just their lives, but the entire landscape of Wall Street. The Patterson Mendoza Initiative, as it was now known throughout the financial industry, had become a model for corporate diversity programs nationwide. Lauren gathered her things, including the speech she'd be giving at tonight's gala. The event would celebrate not just her and Arthur's love story, but the hundreds of other stories their journey had inspired. In the elevator, she smiled at the maintenance worker, carefully polishing the brass fixtures. He wore a badge identifying him as a participant in their corporate education program, taking night classes in finance while working days, just as so many others had done before him. The town car waited outside, but Lauren often chose to walk, remembering her subway commutes from Queens. New York had a way of keeping you humble, no matter how high you climbed. At home, she found Arthur in their library, helping Claire with her work. Colorful drawings of what she imagined the stock market looked like, complete with bears and bulls having tea parties. "Mama!" Claire launched herself into Lauren's arms. "I help Daddy with important business." "Very important," Arthur agreed solemnly, though his eyes twinkled. "Our youngest analyst has some revolutionary ideas about market indicators." Later that evening, as they prepared for the gala, Lauren watched Arthur help Michael adjust his bow tie. Their relationship had deepened into something beautiful, not replacing the memory of Arthur's first son, but creating its own precious space in their hearts. The celebration was held at the Metropolitan Museum, in the same temple where they'd married. Mrs. Rodriguez, now retired but still the heart of their extended family, had insisted on supervising the catering. Ryan and Sarah arrived with news of their first pregnancy. Robert Torres, though retired, came to see his legacy continue through the programs he'd helped establish. Standing at the podium, Lauren looked out at the gathered faces, executives and maintenance staff, veterans and newcomers, all part of the change they'd helped create. 10 years ago, a cleaning cart and a whispered warning changed my life, she began. But the real story isn't about one person's journey from maintenance to management. It's about what happens when we dare to see beyond surface appearances, when we have the courage to believe that love and talent can come from anywhere. She gestured to the graduates of their program seated throughout the room. Look around. Every person here has a story. Every story matters. And when we create space for all those stories to be heard, we don't just change individual lives, we transform entire institutions. Arthur joined her at the podium, Claire in his arms and Michael at his side. Together, they represented everything their journey had made possible. Love that transcended boundaries, family bonds forged by choice as much as blood, and the power of believing that everyone deserves a chance to write their own story. The greatest fairy tales, Lauren concluded, aren't about magic transformations or glass slippers. They're about the courage to be authentically ourselves, the strength to lift others as we rise, and the wisdom to know that real love, in all its forms, is the most powerful force for change in the world. As applause filled the ancient temple, Lauren looked at her family, all of them from blood relatives to chosen family to the extended circle of lives they'd touched. Their story had begun with a cleaning cart and a whispered warning, but it had grown into something far greater, a legacy of love, courage, and the unwavering belief that sometimes the most beautiful stories are the ones we dare to write for ourselves. The future stretched before them, bright with possibility, rich with purpose, and filled with the kind of love that transforms not just hearts, but entire worlds. And somewhere in the city, another story was beginning, another dream taking flight, another heart finding the courage to whisper its truth, because that's the thing about love. It never stops growing, never stops transforming, never stops reminding us that the greatest adventures often start in the most unexpected places. All we need is the courage to begin. What did you think of this story? Leave a rating from 0 to 10 in the comments below. We'd love to see your opinion and give your comment a heart. If you missed our last story, here's what happened. A millionaire watches her perfect life fall apart when she discovers that her husband spent all of their fortune on a mistress. As she tries to rebuild with the support of her children, she decides to seek the truth. But what she finds goes beyond betrayal, a dark revelation that will change everything. Are you ready to uncover the deepest secrets of this story? Click the video and dive into a tale of pain, discovery, and revenge. Don't miss what's about to be revealed. I'll see you there.